Today, tap the talkback mic and record your message. You can even listen back to make sure your message sounds perfect. After all, it could end up on the radio. Talk to your favorite iHeartRadio stations with one tap, only on the free iHeartRadio app.
iHeartRadio.
With an open channel,
I guess just try to keep channels open.
we welcome open-minded individuals
I try to keep an open mind to all issues.
with open arms
I think we need to always have our eyes open.
for open conversation. And when you open the iHeartRadio app, you open a whole new world wherever you are.
What should America do about immigration crisis?
I guess open the borders, but at the same time, check everyone that's coming in.
Open the gates.
A free download in the App Store or at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Some people already tuning in, chiming in over there, which we do appreciate. Right now, dropping those reacts. Monica Cervantes and Flaco Jimenez just helps with all those algorithmic things, and feedback is always appreciated in all the ways we do it. And we will have a lot of avenues for that, not even just on the progression of the show, I guess you could say, but also the many different things we talk about in the day. And that's one of the most important focuses and the reason we do the show in the various ways that we do that, including being on all these platforms, is because having that conversation about what affects us here in the borderland, no one else is going to talk about those things the way that we do. And boys, there are a lot to talk about here today. Of course, we had that so little election, and little in a couple of ways, not in importance, because this was a pretty important one. And if you were hoping that it would go the way you wanted it to, you may have lucked out, as long as you weren't part of that roughly 13 to 16% statewide that voted no on those propositions, but also some respectively tight margins when we're talking about those local races that were happening. So we'll delve into those among other things. But then also beyond that, we have a lot of, future political issues at hand here. Again, we are now, with this election now behind us, going to be moving on to, the next one that is coming up just later this month, that primary runoff. Already been talking with some of the candidates here, but even beyond that, some of the looks being done by, local elected officials and bodies about what needs to be done for those future legislative sessions. We're just about, more than a year, better part of a year, let's just call it that for right now, out of some of the next legislative sessions, and being the mad dash that they are, this is the year off, so we'll get back into it. So what are some of the priorities City Council is looking at, as well as how City Council could be working? Some feedback coming from that ad hoc charter advisory committee, and I know there's also a lot of focus on at least one other item on this week's agenda that we'll probably get into as well, but also more information coming out about that whole railway situation. Could Texas's loss be New Mexico's gain, essentially, and what would that actually mean for this local area? We've talked a little bit about that, but we'll get a whole lot more into it. Again, a lot of ways for you to get at the show. Comments over on the social media sites, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. One of the better ways to do so. Also, another like coming in. Robbie Flores reminding everyone, and also dropping that like to please vote. Absolutely. So let's get straight into that here, because I'm not going to say I'm surprised, but I'm definitely disappointed at the local voting turnout. I wasn't going to hold my breath that we were going to hit 5% here as a incredibly conservative kind of estimation, and even that was disappointed. I expected nothing, and I was still let down, to quote an old show here. 3.45% out of the roughly 500,000 registered voters in El Paso County. 17,000 and change actually came out. So if you did, very good, very happy you did so. You all get the gold star, or the let's see if I got the bell around here anywhere. I haven't drugged that under it. Here, this is in honor of you, because you did good. But for everyone else, oh boy, guys, we got to get something going here, because sure, I get it. We have a lot of elections. We have to this month, which is more than a little ridiculous, particularly when it comes to the entire concept of election fatigue being an issue in this area and in general. So not helping with that, obviously. But 3.5%, that is disappointing any way you slice it here. I mean, we're back into school board of elections territory here, which is not a good place to be. So the results there of it here, there were some local ones. The only thing that really objectively failed was the Haciendas del Norte Proposition A, which I will freely admit I wasn't that clear on because it wasn't really on the much of the information being put out there. But we're looking at 57 people having voted in that on its own here. Monica Cervantes celebrating the bell and Falcon menacing a good reminder. Absolutely. That's just, I haven't drugged out that soapbox here in a while, but I'll probably be doing it a whole lot here in this coming days and weeks because we got, a whole lot, again, of elections and votes going on. But going into some of the more widespread elections in the town of Anthony, Alderman number 3, we had Soledad Flores winning over Ferdinand Ramirez, 61 to 38%, but a margin of roughly 15 votes. So not a whole lot of people turning out there. There were like 70 people voting in that race overall. And then when you get to the city of San Elizario, it looks like Isela Reyes came out on top with 41% over Antonio Araujo and Ramon Rojas at 25 and 33%. Ed Cora Lennox voted on the Kentucky Derby. Hope that worked out for you. But just going to say, maybe some of these votes would have a little bit more impact on your life unless you bet the long shot and bet the whole farm on it and manage to hit, which is, sure, if it works out for you, it sounds like it's magic, but not exactly a great life plan for, everyone. Let's just say it that way. And then the city of San Lazaro, Alderperson 4, we had Antonio Flores taking it over Eric Montes, 51% to 48 and change. So pretty close contest for a lot of this year. But then the state of Texas constitutional amendment propositions, those, let's just say the local votes very much mirroring what the statewide votes were. Locally, we are at just shy of 90% for Proposition 1 and about 84% in favor in either way for Proposition number 2. And statewide, pretty damn similar. 87% statewide for Proposition number 1 and about 85% for Proposition number 2. So a little bit of a difference there, but handily passing either way, which will signify just a little bit of property tax relief, because primarily the number 2 was the easiest one to understand. It's stated out very specifically, increasing the amount of homestead tax exemption from about $25,000 to $40,000, making that, it is just, the math is right there in front of you, so pretty easy to understand. John Brazelton saying that it's better to have only intelligent voters voting than citizens who don't know which side is up. But see, here's the thing. I want all of the voters to be intelligent, because if you're just saying, if the stupid people stay out of the election, that's fine, but there's nothing exactly preventing that from happening in the future, and that's kind of part of the problem and the discussion that comes up when you deal with populism. I know has had a very interesting recent history in its terms of use politically, but in general, the way you could think of it as someone going out and stirring up people that have no idea what's going on and therefore can be more easily swayed because, undecided voters, there's a lot of other phrases I can't use that's been talked about them. But again, specifically, the fact that we have all these people that are able to vote and not doing so, that just makes it, people getting them involved. Again, I'm torn in so many ways when we come to this issue. Yes, I want more people voting. I would love for them to be completely informed, able to write their own dissertations on all of the issues here, but I'm also not going to hold my breath that that's going to happen. But then if we're dealing with people that are completely uninformed, single issue voters, another way to kind of think about it, if you want to get down to brass tacks about it, the idea of people coming out for one issue, that's why we get undervotes in a lot of races. What that generally means is that, someone voted in the election, but didn't actually put down anything. In one of these elections, City of San Lazario, Alderperson 5, undervotes almost, it was a sizable portion of the actual in favor votes cast for the single candidate there. So it's not something to be sneezed at. But I will say, I'm in general in favor of more people voting. We need more people, if only to prove to elected officials currently that people are paying attention, because right now, I think it's way too easy for them to kind of hand wave, no one's really watching. I know the 5 people in my district who vote, so they're the only ones I have to talk to. and kind of leaves out more general concerns. It makes it trivializes it, I guess, is the what I'm really getting at, particularly when it comes down to like public comment and issues like those kind of things, thinking like, oh, these are just the couple of, ankle biters, the people who are coming out, the people making a fuss, and no one else really cares. So we don't have to worry about general public opinion as long as I've got my very specific voter base on lock. So that's why I have the issue of it. So again, in general, sure, every voter who goes out should be educated and knowledgeable about the issues that they are casting their ballot on. But let's not let perfect be the enemy of good, because right now there's not a whole lot of good being done when it comes to the people not going to the polls and not being involved. How many times have people called in and said, let's wake up, let's talk about things, and they have their own connotations and meaning behind it. They want to talk about very, very basic steps in waking people up. Let's talk about punching your ticket to public life by going out to the polls as a very important first step. Not the only step, but at least let's get it going. Let's get this snowball gathering steam, as one of my friends used to say, because it's important, but a whole lot more issues to talk about, including these issues that some of our elected officials will be voting and talking on about. So for those may be confused, City Council having one of its meetings today, mostly the agenda-setting meeting, and then more presenting and voting on the items coming up tomorrow. So a lot of focus on all of the issues coming up there. So we'll delve into that further, probably a little bit more on some of these current votes and what that's actually going to mean, if only just the significance of what it means for people's consideration when it comes to the property taxes and concern about it statewide. Sure, no one likes the idea of essentially losing out. Well, okay, there's 16 to 13% statewide that aren't totally on board with the way these propositions were done, at least of the voting public here. But I think it signifies further on a larger dissatisfaction with, well, all the property taxes going on here. So that's going to take us through our first break of the hour here right now. Again, if you're wanting to call in, comment, or do so through the show, phone lines open a little bit later. But of course, a lot of comments. Flake Menace, John Brazelton, Ed Clore, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, and more tuning in, chiming in over on the social media. We'll be back with all of that and a whole lot more after this break with Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. I'm still remembering the last time I got to hang out with the wonderful folks over at Enhanced Flavors and seeing their full selection. I know we talk about the 40 different varieties of quality flavored olive oils, balsamic vinegars, and extra virgin olive oils, but it's another thing to see it in person, because they have one heck of a selection, very well laid out, and it's really worth it to go and see them in person when you can. Again, my last visit out at Lavino 2 weekends ago now. Time flies, certainly flies, but you can also pretty much always find them out in the community, particularly at the Upper Valley Arts and Farmers Market that happens Sundays, mornings into early afternoon. They're in the Hobby Lobby parking lot near Crossroads, not too far from Donovan and Mesa, because they have got some serious selection and possibilities. And the one that I most recently picked up is that jalapeno lime lights balsamic vinegar. And it's wonderful. I love it a lot. I've been using it in a lot of small ways. I'm going to do that marination here. Just need to find the right cut I want to do it with. I mean, it could work with just about anything you want to throw it on to, with be it steaks, barbacoa, whatever you got for it. Plus, they got a whole lot more selection for just about anything that you feel you could use along in your cooking here and really help spice up your life, because they import their olive oils from some of the best places in the world for that. Tunisia, Italy, Greece, and Spain. And of course, their balsamic vinegar straight from the Modena province of Italy, because otherwise it doesn't count as such. And I've even had people who've been with me along to Italy try it out for themselves, and you should try it too. You can find them out at enhancedflavors.com. Again, that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident there with paramedics on the scene. Gateway Boulevard, northbound at Diana, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right shoulder. Americas Avenue at North Loop Drive, a stalled vehicle is blocking the right lane, stay left. And Americas Avenue eastbound at Socorro, both north and southbound, the turnaround lane there is closed till further notice for road work. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's $1,000 in your hand.
$1,000.
No NFTs or ESGs. It's $1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
$1,000 in your hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Drive out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, Bed Bath, and Walmart. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland. Whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development, the El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hand me that nail gun.
Here you go. And here's the fries.
Lunch. Who's hungry?
You know, maybe instead of loading up a nail gun with French fries to feed the crew, we should just order lunch through Easy Cater. Food from all our favorite restaurants.
My bad.
On time and as ordered.
Delicious. Huh. Load up the hot dogs while I think about it.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work on time and as ordered from over 85,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. We'll have that phone line open a little bit later here in the program. We want to chime in over there. But then a lot of comments coming in. A lot of talk about the, of course, I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day, but, of course, the Kentucky Derby also impacting a lot of people here. I'm sure very exciting for those that bet on that kind of a thing, or just love the most exciting 3 minutes in sports. Probably less than that. I'm probably misquoting that line horribly. Not generally the sports person. We trust our guys over at Fox Sports 1380 to handle that for us. But, a lot of people chiming in on that. Who won the most money in that 80-1 bet? In the long shot, if it works, it seems like magic, doesn't it? And if it doesn't, well, hope you didn't bet the farm on it, because you're going to have you're not going to have one to go back to, among other things here. But a whole lot more we're talking about within the borderland region, including, of course, what's going on with city council. Now, there's some specific issues that have been brought up by callers from last week that we'll certainly be getting into here. But a couple of general topics I want to broach here before we get too much further into it is, of course, what's going to be going on with the state legislative agenda. Because the city, essentially, when it comes to this set of issues, of course, we have the local state delegation, the state reps, and the state senator representing the area that end up making the trek over to Austin and hearing all those hearings. But given how much of a mad dash that whole thing is, I mean, we talk about that. That's been one of our more recurring, consistent bits of coverage on this program is, of course, what's going on with that. But it only happens, Texas is weird that way. It only happens that kind of first half of the year every 2 years. So this is the year when it's not happening. If you're wondering what the heck's going on with the legislature, don't worry, it's coming back. But Texas is very specific. It was kind of a fluke for how long it ran back in, last year, because it usually isn't called back that often. So setting out the agenda and what the city is interested is pretty important. But again, the difference here in this case is that the city is essentially one of many lobbyists. And in fact, the city has at many various points in time has had lobbyists. And so probably be coming up a little bit more once we get closer to it. And you could consider, in a way, are elected officials as opposed to holding that role. But again, the city with no specific duties or powers along those lines is really kind of left vying for as much attention and influence as everyone else is when it comes to this. So in the agenda meeting here today, going on setting out some of those priorities, because you may be confused that the city council meeting that you can public comment on is tomorrow. It is. This is the one setting the agenda and some of the priorities going forth. So it's not the exact like installing new ordinances, but talking about what will be and potentially be on those votes. Just to keep it clear. I know it gets a little bit too damn confusing sometimes, but just keep it clear as you can. And remember to go out and vote again, as Robbie said at the top of the program here. So a couple of those things that City Council was looking at very specifically for this upcoming legislative agenda includes what's going to be going on with, there's some other specific ones that we're talking about here, but allowing access to funding to reimburse companies for relocation to Texas, incentive for solar initiatives, address the impacts of inflations, Paso del Norte and Stanton Street Bridge improvements, and funding for the Weiler Aerial Tramway, just to name a few. Again, this is to put it simply, a lobbying effort that will happen because the city has no direct control, of course, over what the legislature does. But of course, some positive things have happened in the past. And Weiler Aerial Tramway is one near and dear to my heart, having spent a lot of time up and around the Franklins. And also, just as a random note, kind of important for the functioning of this station, among other things, because it didn't start as a totally tourist attraction, but rather as a functional way to transport servicers and equipment up to the top of the mountain here. So that's important, but also turning it into more of a venue. It's the place that I used to love to take people from out of town to show them the true breadth of the area. So that's been getting moved along kind of slowly but steadily. They had the whole funding to even do the study on what might be needed because replacement is the order of the day. Repair is kind of out of the question. All of the equipment involving the tramway has really reached its lifetime of usefulness. So that's going to be some millions of dollars, and some other ones are pretty important. And again, there's going to be a whole lot more coming through. This is just the start of the process. So you can even find the full presentation on what exactly are on the legislative agenda items here. Put onto a few different specific categories: economic development, budget, transportation, and border. The presentation and fully pulled out. So if you want to go see from our news partners over at kfoxtv.com, they've got the idea so you can see for yourself. But then one other one that is coming up here that is kind of, let's just talk about it as baselines for the moment. We've had a couple of call-ins, actually, from some of those that are on the Ad Hoc Charter Advisory Committee. So that is a long way to say these is a citizen committee that is appointed by City Council to look into what might need to be changed on the basic operation of City Council. Now, one of the more contentious things that has come up over this last year, you may recall, was actually involving vetoes, when Mayor Oscar Leeser stepped in and did a veto or two, actually, if you want to go deep enough, and caused some upheaval when it came to certain specific issues. It was a variety of ones. So that kind of a question about should that still be in place, since it's essentially a vestige of the strong mayor form of government that we had. Oh, geez, I can't remember the exact date. Before I could vote, anyway. That's when that got put into place to then implement the city manager form of government we have now. But this is a vestige of that. So one of the major questions that keeps getting talked about, should the mayor have this veto ability, or should he be another voting member along with everyone else, essentially? There will still be more controls potentially about the agenda and setting it such and management of such. But in terms of the actual meetings and approval or not of agenda items, should that still be in place? Now, this isn't one of even the own ones, and the meetings involving this aren't over yet. And, well, at least that proposal itself here, among others, that also could include increasing the amount of representatives on City Council to reflect the growth that has happened in the area. It's been slow growth. Don't make any mistake, but it still has been some growth. Should that be allowed to continue? RJ is saying, let's hope that the lobbyists have plenty of money to spread around. There is going to be, I don't think the city can exactly support campaigns, but can argue that, well, your constituents will be very happy or unhappy. And then, of course, there's PACs and aligned PACs. It's not even a whole nother show to go into that. That's a whole nother format of show that would just go into the politics of how lobbyists and lobbying and even just within our state capital can work here. That's not even just another episode of this program. That'd have to be a whole separate podcast practically on that here. So calling it unsimple is an understatement to the extreme, but again, there's a whole lot more to come there. But specifically on that proposal to increase the number of district representatives, I mean, city council members from 8 to 9, our news partners again over at KFOX, a quote from Laura Cruz Acosta, Strategic Communications Director, saying that the committee has voted not to recommend the proposal. It is unknown at this time if the item would be on the ballot. Furthermore, it would not be considered until the census reported our city population at 900,000 if the council placed the item on the ballot and the voters approved the item here. So there's a lot more, and there are more meetings still in this ad hoc charter advisory committee. Ad hoc making it sound maybe a little less formal than it is, but it is pretty important. Again, we've had some callers on that who sit on that body giving us some updates from time to time, which we do appreciate. But that's not, of course, the only things coming up on city council lately. So tell you what, we got to take that next break here right now. John Browsland saying the mayor is the only city official looking out for the taxpayers. Every other council member wants to spend our money like drunken sailors. Again, kind of an interesting phenomenon happening in a landlocked city otherwise, this drunken sailor thing. But tell you what, we'll talk more about this coming out of this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Open up those phone lines a little bit later, but a whole lot more comments and a lot more happening over on our social media. So if you want to chime in over there, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, look for us under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, and you can chime in on that. So we'll get into that and a whole lot more after this break with Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. A man walking in central El Paso that died as a result of being struck by a vehicle Sunday has been identified. 38-year-old Christopher Corey Mozingo died at the scene at 1100 Rio Grande Avenue. El Paso City Council has approved the appropriation of $154 million from the American Rescue Plan Acting Fund. The city is shifting its focus from the relief approach to the recovery focus. With the approval, the council voted to fund several projects and services, including $6.6 million for police body cams, $7 million for expansion of city surveillance cameras, $6 million to support homelessness. Elizabeth Triggs, the Director of Economic and International Development for the city, says the areas mentioned are the ones in need of the most assistance. In regards to the $14 million for small businesses, Triggs explains the money will not allow for businesses to recover but withstand future shocks such as a pandemic. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Updates.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Gateway Boulevard, westbound at Geronimo, an injury accident there with paramedics on the scene. Gateway Boulevard, northbound at Diana, a stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. America's Avenue at North Loop Drive, a stalled vehicles blocking the right lane, stay left. And America's Avenue eastbound at Socorro, both north and southbound, the turnaround lane there is closed till further notice for road work. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our dusty, windy weekend that we had continues into a new work week. We'll continue to deal with these strong winds as we get through about Thursday, though. We'll start to see some changes taking place. And that means we're in for lighter winds for the second half of the week, along with even warmer temperatures. In fact, we could be looking at our warmest day yet so far this week.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it. My name is Dr. Moira Salaji. I'm the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we want you to know it's important for all children 5 and over to get a COVID vaccine because we know millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Globally, about 1,000 plants we depend on for food and products need to be pollinated by animals, including coffee, melons, chocolate, almonds, and even tequila. Help stabilize the declining honeybee population by planting native plants that they rely on for food, habitat, and nesting. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
The all-new Empower program at El Paso Children's Hospital is for children who are at risk for or who have been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or prediabetes. With a doctor's referral, you get dietitians, nutrition education, counseling, and more. The Empower program at El Paso Children's Hospital.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. A lot of ways to get at the show. We got a lot of comments coming in right now over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Find us other Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on all of those platforms here. John Browson and Flaco Jimenez, RJ over on the YouTube, Ed Clore, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores a little bit earlier. Always with a good reminder, please vote everyone. Need that on a banner behind me. But Flaco Jimenez, John Browson right before the break saying that supports the mayor as the only city official looking out for taxpayers. Flaco Jimenez kind of on the same vein here, but a little bit different, saying strong mayor is best. We don't need more representatives. We need more mature representatives. Something of a phrase of you get what you vote for comes to mind here. But of course, just these charter advisory conclusions. There'll be more coming out tomorrow in tomorrow's city council meeting, just a little bit more specifics coming out of it. But this is, of course, not the only things being talked about on the agenda. So, again, to make it perfectly clear, what happened city council meeting today was their work session, essentially going into what is going to be on the agenda, some further priorities that are in line with what's already allowed, already been voted on, but the actual then city council voting items and the time on public comment, that'll be happening tomorrow. And there has been one item of particular, so they say, concern and, well, being further looked at by, well, even some of our commenters and beyond and callers here. So actually we have on the line here right now, we do have Ray Baca, local Republican Party chairman, here on the line to talk to us about that. Ray, thanks very much for joining us.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me this afternoon.
Absolutely. And, here. Mm-hmm.
You know, I know you like to focus on local issues, and that's of great value to citizens of El Paso. But we now have a situation that I'm calling about, which really is a national issue and a state issue, but we have a city rep trying to make it a local issue, and that's where our objection lies. Mm-hmm. As many people may have heard, one of our representatives is putting a matter on the agenda to discuss forming some type of a women's rights commission. And it's being done in response to the Roe v. Wade information that's circulating around the country and has a lot of Democrats up in arms. Mm-hmm. You know, and our perspective, Roe v. Wade, is it should have never been a national issue. It should have been a state issue. And we feel that this action being taken by the Supreme Court is just going to return it to where it should be, which means state law. And that's where we object to the city saying, taking a role in it. I do not believe the city should be wasting extra time, effort, resources, getting involved in something that they're going to have absolutely no control over, really no say-so over. This will be decided in Austin or in Washington, as the case may be, depending on whether that the way it really is reversed. And so the city doesn't need to take a stand. All that they're doing is doing a false narrative of saying, look how much we care about women's rights. Our concern as Republicans is the rights of the unborn child. Who cares about them? And where's the commission to protect the unborn child? So we're supporting a protest that will happen tomorrow morning in front of City Hall. It's actually organized by Irene Jackson, our congressional candidate. Mm-hmm. We're supporting that protest, asking people to go down there, let City Hall know that they do not support this action by the City Council. So I just wanted to comment on that, and I appreciate your letting me do that.
Absolutely. Here. So you're talking about, again, during the city council meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m., 300 North Campbell, in the old El Paso Times building. I still think about it that way. But you're talking specifically about item number 13, and the way city council usually works for those who aren't familiar. They got the consent agenda, which is a kind of rapid fire set of items that usually go through without much controversy. But then item number 13 will be on then the regular agenda. It's actually the second item on that today. And so that one, discussion and action protecting women's rights and to direct city manager to work with the city council to establish a City of El Paso Women's Commission and or board focus on women's equality and protecting their rights. And looking further at the agenda item here, the ones essentially sponsoring this being City Representative Henry Rivera, Alexandra Anello, Peter Sparsbein, and Cassandra Hernandez as the Henry Rivera as the main sponsor, and then the other three mentioned there as the co-sponsors. And delving a little bit further into that beyond the discussion and the item title there as it is, referencing specifically that leaked draft from the Supreme Court as the majority opinion by Samuel Alito, Justice there. So that's what you're focusing on here. So when it comes to that, what exactly would you then like to see done, if not this item?
Well, I think it should be taken off the agenda altogether. I think women's rights. It depends on how you're framing your Declaration of Women's Rights. Certainly, women's rights in many areas should be protected, and I think they are. But women can speak for themselves. Where this comes to play is it's being done in response to the Roe v. Wade as some type of protection of their right to abortion, and that's where we differ. We don't think that there should be this unabridged right to abortion up until the time of birth. I mean, like New York or California right now, you can legally abort a baby a day before birth. And it's really scary to hear that there have been proposed laws, none have been passed to my knowledge, but laws have been proposed that would even allow the termination of a baby's life after birth. And that's really scary that a society could come to a point where they would even consider something like that. We want it to be very much more tightly controlled. We think there should be limits. Now, some people will go so far as say there should be no abortion under any circumstances, i.e., life begins at birth and every child has a right to live. And we can argue those points as to just where that limit is. But certainly 98% of the people are going to say it is not right to abort a baby the day before that baby should be born. How is that not infanticide? And that's where we're concerned, that the city's going to interject itself into a discussion, into a debate that it has no business getting involved in. This is a debate that will occur at the state legislatures, and laws will be passed and enforced statewide based on the voter preferences. And if the voters in Texas want to have a more restrictive abortion law, they can do so. If the voters in California want to continue a less restrictive abortion law, well, I guess that's their prerogative as well.
So given that the city council is at this moment beginning their process of also considering, well, what's going to be going on the legislative agenda, I could potentially see this being in both places. Again, we have the item coming up tomorrow, but if it comes to the city, therefore putting it on the legislative agenda as an item to be looked at either by our local delegation or something to be lobbied for further in Austin, I guess you're saying, would that be the appropriate way to do it, or do you also have opposition to that?
I think I have opposition to that. If individual members or citizens want to lobby their state representatives on their particular position on abortion, that's fine. But I don't think the city representatives, as representatives of this community at large, should be taking a position in support of abortion rights. And that's what they're lining up to do. I don't think it's the place of city representatives to come up with a commission that's going to somehow make El Paso, the next step I could see coming out of here is making El Paso a sanctuary city for abortions or something like that. And that's just something that he doesn't need to be doing.
All right. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us a bit here today on kind of this impromptu basis. Again, this is in reference to that item coming up on City Council's agenda tomorrow, because today was the work session. Tomorrow, the actual public City Council meeting. and talk specifically about item number 13, discussion and action of protecting women's rights, and about a committee and or commission on women's equality, protecting their rights. Here you can find information on that if you go to the City of El Paso website, elpasotexas.gov. Look for the city council agendas. But again, speaking with rights right now has been Ray Bach, chairman of the local Republican Party. So thank you very much for taking a bit of time here to speak with us about that here today.
Thank you, and I hope citizens get energized and show up tomorrow and let council know how they the matter.
All right, appreciate the time. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
All right. All right. I mean, there's a lot to go here too, and I'm fully in support. I've been very much in on the record, and going to continue to do so as long as I have the opportunity to say, yeah, if you got an issue that you're involved in or want to see more being done out, you're passionate about, even if you think it just might be something important to talk about, yeah, go get involved. So if you're wanting to go out to there again, El Paso City Council, their meeting starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and that's, of course, down at City Hall, which is, of course, in its own right, 900, I do believe, or 300, rather, getting my numbers mixed up, 300 North Campbell. And you can, of course, also find them, virtual meetings are still there. If you want to see it, elpasotexas.gov/videos. It's also on the City 15 actual channel. And then YouTube, City of El Paso TX. So look for it in all those places here. So a lot of commentaries coming on that here. I mean, this issue, just ever so slightly a hot button one. So let's go ahead and open up those general phone lines right now. If you wanted to call in during the show, the number to do that is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Got to take that next break right now, but we'll be opening up the phone lines, talking more about this and some of the other things going on, including what's being talked about statewide on this particular issue on its own preview. Well, it might be coming up in this legislative session. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. One more time, that phone number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a crash on the I-10 westbound at the Cotton exit. That's exit 20. It is blocking the two left lanes. Stay right there. And as an alternate exit, you could use the following exit. That's Piedras. Father Ram at Stanton downtown has an injury accident. And watch for a crash with injuries Northern Pass Drive, just south of Paseo del Norte at Canyon Rin. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Our homes, we protect them from intruders with security systems. But there's another kind of intruder most people aren't aware of until it's too late. Home title thieves. When a criminal transfers your home title to a fake identity and steals your title, no one will notify you. Not the police, not even your bank. Sadly, people find out when it's too late, when their home is sold out from under them, or the eviction notice comes. That's when the legal nightmare begins. You need Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection. For just pennies a day, Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier of protection around your home's title with 24/7 monitoring. Cyber technology has made it easy for criminals to steal your home. Home Title Lock alerts you if your home becomes their target. Make sure you're not already a victim. Go to mytitlelock.com and for a limited time, get your free title scan and complete title report. $100 value, free with sign up. Just go to mytitlelock.com. That's mytitlelock.com.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Hey, it's Mario Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day. Keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find SmartMouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with SmartMouth at smartmouth.com/radio.
Boost your IQ by listening to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling podcast in the country. This week, we tell the story of one of the most important culture wars in modern history, Gamergate. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to get at the show here. And as is fully expected, given the, serious and controversial issues we're dealing with here today, phone line's full up at the moment, but if you want to get on the line and get in line when you can a little bit later in the program, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in. You can always leave your comments while we're live over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. RJ, Maria Coleman, Catherine Codry, Calvin Williams, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, Ed Clore, and Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores a little bit earlier chiming in. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk are the names you can find us under most of those platforms here, including some interesting commentary on, other priorities here. Mary Coleman saying that Svarsbine has ignored mothers in the area for the last 6 years. We've been pleading for safety speed bumps to protect kids. Heavy traffic and speeders in our neighborhood needs to concentrate on issues really affecting his constituents, not abstract ideas leading to another $400,000 position here for someone they have in mind, and no one will vote for that. Kevin Wells also letting me know that Tyler says hi. Good afternoon to you all as well. Again, a lot of interesting points over here, but let's go back to those phone calls right now. Again, the number to call there, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Barbara on the west side here with us right now. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. I was just listening to Chairman Baca's comments regarding the meeting tomorrow, the City Council meeting tomorrow on the Protect All Women's Rights. And I agree with what he said. And in addition to that, I'd like to remind the city that their responsibility is to the citizens of El Paso as a whole. Their accountability is to El Paso. This is a social issue that has absolutely no business being on agenda. They should be focused on the budget, tax rates, contracts, and how about those certificates of obligation that they just, use anytime they need a little bit more of money. They need to do the zoning laws and regulate construction, but not tread into troubled waters on a social issue that the people in El Paso, in my opinion, would not tolerate. Why are they wanting to use our tax dollar on what is, I don't know, it's a democratic issue in my view, because the values of El Paso do not support abortion up until the last month. And it was very, very disheartening to hear President Biden say that reversing Roe versus Wade would actually do away with women's right to abort a child. He didn't say a fetus. He was very specific about aborting a child. It was also disheartening to hear our Congresswoman Escobar on TV saying that her daughter is going to grow up with fewer rights than she has. That's also untrue. The Supreme Court is sending this to the states and let the states deal with the issue at a local level. And the idea that El Paso wants to be divided over this issue, as if we aren't already divided in the whole country. Now this issue is going to divide people in El Paso. We do not need that. We need unity. We need our city council to focus on governing the city of El Paso as a whole, not choose and pick social justice issues or contradictory issues that divide our city. I mean, if that's the case, why didn't they jump in there when women's sports were being obliterated? I mean, women needed protection there too. And if it's for women's rights, why is Councilman Rivera saying that if it affects a woman, it affects a man? Well, this council is going to be strictly women. So where is the male input? And then how are they going to define a woman? There is so much friction. There's so much controversy on the definition of a woman. And then are there going to be lawsuits here within the city of people suing city, and our tax dollars are going to be used to fight back lawsuits? This is something that should be dealt with in the legislature, like Mr. Baca said, but not at a local level. We want them to focus on our streets, the electric company, rates, our water system. There's a million other things that the city itself should be concerned with other than abortion rights. And, you know, the Supreme Court was very specific, and I'm going to read exactly what they stated, so that these women that are saying they're losing their rights, or a congresswoman that her daughter's going to have less rights than her, this is what it specifically states. To ensure that our decision is not misunderstood or mischaracterized, we emphasize that our decision concerns the constitutional right to abortion and no other right. Nobody is losing a right. The right to abortion is going to be settled by the state, and our city should not get involved in these waters. They should just stay in their lane and represent the city of El Paso. And you know what? It would be nice if they would answer some phones and respond to their constituents when we call them with complaints. That's the city's obligation to us. And another point I would add, the city should be concerned after the reports that we heard that tuberculosis may have come in with some of these illegal immigrants because of the latency in the symptoms. That's where they should be focused. Where is our health department? I mean, there are so many things that our city needs to be focusing on to protect us and themselves, and they're taking their eye off the ball by wading into waters, like I said, on a social issue that has no business on an agenda.
Let me just say this. I mean, I'm not opposed to the exploration of rights of any kind here, but I guess it's what you were getting at on the idea of, okay, what then comes out of this? Because that's the ultimate question. Sure, you want to look at this, but then what are you planning to do about it? Is this just going to be a rah, we need to focus on this kind of thing, which, okay, sure. Why not, I guess. But then if it's coming out of this, I mean, Ray Baca, chairman of the Republican Party locally, said is about if this is then going to end up being like a sanctuary city kind of thing. The lawsuits you mentioned there very much come to mind. There have been a couple of times in recent history under previous mayoral administrations that lawsuits were coming up and big issues, and even talking about reimbursements. I mean, I remember under Mayor Cook, that was a whole kerfuffle, and I think is, well, not going on till this day, but went on even past his time in office, among other things. So if that's going to be the issue and the way it goes on here, I guess really the justification of, are they then going to commit the city to the very possible lawsuits that could come after this if they're getting involved and wanting to take a stand and action, very specifically the action on this issue, or anything else very much in the same kind of vein along with this? I mean, El Paso is no strict stranger to having to deal with these issues. County previously has seen it when it came to the whole idea of immigration sanctuary city, where there were actually some other court decisions involved in it, and there were some rock and a hard place kind of decisions having to be made here that the legislature basically said, nah, you'll be fine. And we're facing down other possible, legal repercussions. But tell you what, we got to take that break right now. But coming out of this break, we'll certainly get into this and a whole lot more because, well, it deserves the discussion here, and that's what we're here for. So we'll continue to talk about that. So thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. But again, got to take that break right now. Again, that number to call if you're wanting to call in is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after the break with more. See you in a minute.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Trans Mountain. A stalled vehicles blocking the right lane. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Dyer. Police are just showing up at an accident there. Gateway Boulevard southbound at Montana. Heavy congestion there is slowing traffic. And on the Gateway westbound at Harnos Drive, watch for an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
With so many real estate agents to choose from, how do you find the best one? Hi, it's Glenn Beck. One key is just looking for the investment that an agent is willing to make to get your home sold. Brian Birds with eXp Realty and his team have a marketing budget 25 times higher than the average agent's annual income. This means your home gets maximum exposure because it's marketed to the widest possible audience and gets you the highest possible sales price. Brian is so confident in his ability to sell your home fast and for more money that he's willing to put his own money on the line. If your home doesn't sell at the price and deadline you agreed to, he'll buy it from you himself. You're not going to find another real estate agent in El Paso who is that invested in getting your home sold. He's the only one I'd call. Google Brian Birds. That's Brian, B-U-R-D-S. Read over 400 five-star reviews because I'm not the only one who knows you should call Brian Birds. Google Brian Birds or just check out brianbirds.com.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Police in Alabama say the escaped prison inmate and the prison guard accused of helping him escape are in custody. Police said jailer Vicky White and inmate Casey White were captured in Indiana during a car pursuit and subsequent wreck. Vicky White was hurt in the crash and is in the hospital. The White House press secretary is ripping Russian President Putin's speech on Russia's so-called Victory Day.
Putin is perverting history, changing history to try to, or attempting to change it, to justify his unprovoked and unjustified war.
Jen Psaki said Putin is running a disinformation factory that's patently false and absurd. Stocks are sharply lower on Wall Street. The S&P 500 fell below 4,000 to its lowest level in a year as big tech got hammered. The Nasdaq lost over 4% with Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Tesla among the decliners. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 653 points to 32,245. The U.S. will have to limit next-generation COVID-19 vaccines to high-risk individuals this fall if Congress doesn't approve additional funding. Lisa Taylor reports.
The White House warned that it lacks the money to purchase enough vaccines for all Americans ahead of an expected fall surge. Pfizer and Moderna are already at work developing vaccines that target Omicron variant mutations. A $10 billion funding package has already failed to pass the Senate, and it's less than half of the $22.5 billion the White House initially requested. Senate Republicans have promised to block the funding until the policy known as Title 42 is reinstated. It allows the U.S. to turn away asylum seekers at the borders during the pandemic.
The lawyer for Brian Laundrie's parents says the lawsuit filed by Gabby Petito's family is likely an effort to get his notebook. The New York woman was presumably killed by her boyfriend during a cross-country trip that the pair was documenting on social media. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Several factors could cause many major road projects to be delayed this summer in Georgia. Rosia Rivera has the details.
Inflation, the war in Ukraine, and supply chain backups are just some of the reasons why many road projects across the state have or continue to be delayed from the estimated completion dates. The rising price of materials and worker shortages are also factoring into the delays, such as is the case for the ongoing reconstruction of the I-285 interchange at Georgia 400. GDOT says prices for roadwork have increased 15 to 20% overall, and many contractors are hesitant to bid on roadwork due to the uncertainty on prices.
Over 585,000 pounds of frozen chicken breasts are being recalled because they may not be fully cooked. The chicken breasts were made between February 9th and April 30th and sold by Wayne Farms, LLC. The recall includes 9-pound cases of Natural Fire grilled chicken breast and also 16-ounce packages of Chef's Craft chicken breast filet. It was a shocking Kentucky Derby this year with a last-minute long shot taking the win, and it was also a record-breaking year for the track. Will Clark has more.
Churchill Downs says a record $273.8 million was bet on the Kentucky Derby's 14-race card. That's up 9% from the 2019 record of $250.9 million. Derby week betting was $391.8 million, up 14% from 2019's $343 million.
The tiny Texas town of Palmhurst is being led by a dead man. Ramiro Rodriguez Jr. was reelected as mayor of the southern Texas city near McAllen over the weekend. The only problem is Rodriguez died last month at the age of 68. That didn't stop 329 people from casting a ballot in his name, which was enough to beat the lone challenger. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Work. That's work. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Spending time outdoors can improve overall health and wellness. Celebrate Earth Day and take advantage of nature's health benefits by visiting a local park. Recreate responsibly to protect yourself and others, and to make the outdoors safe and welcoming for people of all identities and abilities. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Available now from iHeart, returning for Season 3, is The Restless Ones, an original podcast presented by T-Mobile for Business and iHeartRadio. Join me as I sit down for in-depth discussions with the people at the intersection of technology and business. You'll learn how each of these leaders is building a bridge to what's next and leveraging transformative technologies like 5G to create a more connected and meaningful future today. Listen to The Restless Ones on the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Children who grow up in poverty are part of a destructive cycle. At Child Fund International, we find this unacceptable. In 25 countries, we are vigorously fighting poverty and improving the lives of children and their families. Learn more at childfund.org.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am, of course, your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for sticking around for the second hour of our program here today, getting into the 5 o'clock hour with a lot of calls on the line, a lot of comments coming in, and all that open and available to you all, because, of course, that's the point in the show when we have that available, given for regular shows anyway. That number to call, full up at the moment, but the number if you want to try to get in when it opens up further, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Also, a lot of comments coming in over on the social media. You can find us facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Out of those names, most of those places, you can find us, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. But even if you're over with us on terrestrial radio, listening to us on air, online, or live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, stay locked in with us as we talk a whole lot more about the things affecting us here in the borderland here this second hour of the program today. And again, calling in is if you're on those ways and you like to do it. But also if you're on the iHeartRadio app, don't forget about that talkback feature, and stay tuned. We got some more special things coming for that, so it might help to familiarize yourself with it. Just as a note here to start this second hour, it's pretty simple. When you're on the 690 page, you can look for that red microphone here. Also, here's some of the ads going on around about it, because it's a new feature across the app, wherever you're listening to. So you can leave us a message, let us know when it comes in, and just leave your name there so we can get back with you if we need to, because there might be some giveaways happening there is what I'm going to say for the moment here, so just stay tuned for that here. But let's get back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of conversation going on online about how things are considered here. Calvin Williams saying, always said that the community sets its own culture, not people sitting in Washington, D.C. Flaco Jimenez also saying it's a congressional representative's job to deal with national issues here. So we'll see how these conversations all go on, and some further about local politicians having to wait for federal money to show up before they can do anything. Again, a lot of this focusing on the city council, that agenda item number 13 tomorrow, but that's just a little bit of what we're talking about here locally and statewide. So let's go back to those phone lines right now. We do have Jerry in Northwest here on the line with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call. I have a question. Which one of those council members on your city council there in El Paso is qualified as a doctor to identify whether that thing inside of a woman's body is a baby or not?
Well,
I'm going to say fetus. Fetus is just another word for Latin for baby. So.
Well, ever since Dr. No left city council, he was about the only one that I was immediately aware of having medical credentials.
Okay, so none of the rest of them are qualified to identify it as a baby or not. Isn't that kind of, practicing medicine without a license?
Potentially. Again, just the item as it says right now does reference Roe v. Wade in that draft decision out here. Just further on, just reading on it from what they say here, this item is intended to protect all women's right, including but not limited to the right to make a decision about their bodies, and direct the city manager to establish a City of El Paso Women's Commission focused on women's equality and protecting their rights. So, subtext there, I think you're not too far off from the mark, though. It's not necessarily guaranteed, I would say.
Right to do what? To kill the baby? Doesn't that make them insane? They're committing infanticide there. Infanticide, where they kill their own, and they're innocent. The most innocent. A child in the womb can't even defend themselves. So that's why we stand up as grown-ups and logical creatures to defend them, the right to life. So there's more rights than just one side of it. That baby inside there, majority, okay, I'm going to say majority, half of them can be females. So they are women when they grow up. What about their rights to grow up? And the city council is going to face lots of lawsuits if they go through with this.
That would be my full expectation as well. Again, depending on how this has gone forth. Again, if this is just kind of a rah-rah thing, as let's wave the flag, put out our opinions on this kind of thing, yeah, it still could be lawsuits, but I would expect more to happen if there was then action taken on it. Beyond establishing a committee, if there were then specific things done, anything along the lines of, again, that concept of a sanctuary city in this context, anything leading to that, I would expect would definitely do it. Though there's, of course, the possibility in the meantime, even before that, of there being further legal action.
One more thing, sir. Why are they not going to give the opposite side a chance to create an opposing view? They're trying to ram this down our throat, sounds like, or down the people's throat of El Paso. They discussed this yesterday or today, and they're going to vote on it tomorrow. Isn't that kind of rushing things?
So it was placed on the agenda last week, May 4th. So coming out of that. And then so the meetings, the way City Council does it today, is essentially the agenda and a work session. So it's just setting up what the future action will be. Tomorrow is the actual vote going to be on this item. Frankly, okay, I have a cloudy crystal ball at best. I kind of expect because the last time a majorly controversial item, this one was on a different level of controversy when it comes to the downtown arena, the Duranguito, all of that, up until recently when they did the vote on actually approving the consultation and the study on it. They didn't even vote on it last time. They removed it from the agenda. So I see that at least as a possibility here, though. If it's more towards that first end that I kind of mentioned of the let's make our priorities clear, even if we're not actually going to act on them, I would see it still moving through potentially.
It's sad that they're going to kill their own children. Mother's Day is about being a mother. You can't be a mother without having a baby, a child. Now, adoption is the exception there, but 95% of it is giving birth to a child. The Mother's Day just passed. People don't look at it like that. Without the child, there's no Mother's Day. Thank you for taking my call, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there. I think we have time to get to one more here before we hit this next break. Again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I know you like keeping the calls on local issues. So in as much as we live on the U.S.-Mexico border, things that affect Mexico affect the U.S. And things that go on in Mexico can affect the U.S. with trade, commerce, immigration, water, a host of issues. And obviously, the decisions of the leaders of the United States and Mexico affect the country's relationship. And so the leaders we choose can affect our international relationships and either foster cooperation and peace or adversarial relationships with diplomatic, trade, and kinetic wars. You know, I just recently saw a 60 Minutes interview of lifelong Republican and Trump's former and last Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, talking about his new book. And Mark Esper is a West Point graduate and a former officer and a paratrooper. And his time as Secretary of Defense began when he was overwhelmingly confirmed by the U.S. Senate 90-8 back in July of 2019. Now, in that 60 Minutes interview and in his book, Esper says that President Trump, on a couple of occasions, suggested missile strikes in Mexico and shooting protesters in Washington, D.C. Now, wow, bombing Mexico with missiles to take out drug labs. How crazy is that? Like, we don't have drug labs in the United States or a drug trial in the United States. That's domestic in character. And shooting protesters. Wow, what a wannabe dictator. Now, Secretary of Defense Mark Esper and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, they ran the Army for over a year before finding themselves in charge of the Pentagon and having to deal with what Esper calls some of the crazy ideas coming from the White House. And Esper said that he and chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, came up with a plan of things to prevent from happening before and after the election. They call it the 4 no's. One was no strategic retreats. Number 2 was no unnecessary wars. Number 3, no politicization of the military. And number 4, no misuse of the military. And when Trent asked Esper why he couldn't missile bomb the drug labs in Mexico, Esper said, I had to explain to him, we can't do that. It would violate international law. It would be terrible for our neighbors to the south. It would impact us in so many ways. So Esper said that the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis was a turning point in his time as Secretary of Defense, that on the night of May 31st in Washington, D.C., as you know, protests for racial justice in Washington, D.C. were marred by rioters who set parts of Washington, D.C. ablaze. And this enraged President Trump, according to Esper, who the next day said he was on the verge of ordering 10,000 active military troops into the streets of the Capitol. And Nora O'Donnell, the 60 Minutes interviewer, asked Esper, what specifically was he suggesting that the U.S. military should do to these protesters? Esper said that Trump asked, can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the legs or something. This madman and wannabe dictator must never be president of the United States again.
I can't say I'm surprised that that's your conclusion from this. And I'm taking all this whole memoir with a little bit of a grain of salt, because I think there's more than a few people that were involved with this administration that went willingly along with it, then showing signs of remorse, regret, and trying to change the narrative about their own experience with it. So much like some other narratives that come out with it. I mean, I'm not feeling happy about being put in a position to defend the former president on some of these things. But I mean, essentially off-the-wall suggestions were kind of the norm if you really want to track what happened during that administrations. And even till now, the idea of that he put out since the whole Ukraine war of painting fighter jets different colors to make it look like they need to fight other people here. I mean, there's a reason that you have an executive and then leadership below that implement it to make sure that real ideas can connect with, well, reality. So again, taking it with a grain of salt. And honestly, the idea of doing armed strikes into Mexico has its issues, but we have done similar things in the past when it comes to actual in-country partners. Now, doing it unilaterally would be a horse of a different color, but again, taking it with a grain of salt here. But I really do believe that being informed about what is being talked about in these things is important, and then people being able to make their own decisions about it. I mean, again, not surprised that you're coming to your conclusion. certainly want other people to be able to come to theirs as well here. So we got to take that next break now. Thank you for the point in the call, but we got to get to that next break, and we'll get to more calls on the line coming out of this. So again, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso traffic. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Trans Mountain. A stalled vehicles blocking the right lane. Gateway Boulevard northbound at Dyer. Police are just showing up at an accident there. Gateway Boulevard southbound at Montana. Heavy congestion there is slowing traffic. And on the Gateway westbound at Harnos Drive, watch for an accident there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, Bed Bath, and Walmart. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Now Martha Stewart for Skechers.
When I make a dish or embark on a craft project, I always use the finest, most fabulous ingredients and materials. Which is why, when it comes to footwear, I love Skechers. Because Skechers is the comfort technology company and uses the most luxurious, innovative materials and designs to make wondrously comfortable footwear. It's exactly the way I'd make shoes. They've meticulously designed stylish footwear with all the fits and features you want. They have fits like wide fit, relaxed fit, stretch fit, arch fit, and more. Plus, they have luxurious features including Skechers' world-famous air-cooled memory foam. It's like walking on a cool side of the pillow all day long. And best of all, they find a way to keep them affordable. You simply can't get more comfort and style for your dollar. So if you want the kind of footwear I'd create, get yourself a pair of Skechers. It's comfort with style and more.
Find Skechers at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media apps and other places we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments coming in over there. Raul Amaya as well. RJ, Calvin Williams, Maria Coleman, John Brazelton, Catherine Codry, Barbara Carrasco. A few more a little bit earlier as well, but that's one of the better ways. Flaco Jimenez. Also dropping those likes and reactions. We do appreciate Calvin Williams, Robbie Flores, Marco Cervantes, Flaco Jimenez, and Ion Grimm. I mean, all of it going towards further conversation about what we talk about here and the issues affecting us here in the borderland. Maria Coleman putting it pretty succinctly, actually. Right now, all elections have consequences. I believe it was Jefferson who said that. You get the government you deserve. Many are now living with the consequences of your actions. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it here, and why I'm very in favor of people going on and knowing what's happening and being aware of it. So, to that point, we'll get to more calls in line here right now. 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And now we do have Johnny calling from Central on the line here right now. Johnny, thanks for joining us.
Yes. Good afternoon. I have been hearing this concern, pro and con, about the abortion issue. I'll start out by saying, as a man, I'm pro-choice. Not saying that as a woman I should be pro-choice, but I always believe in a person making their own decisions about all their health issues. Now, I keep hearing people on both sides, especially ones who are trying to get on these people, talking about what they're going to do to what the government should do to the people who are trying to save their lives. I'm talking about the doctors and the nurses and the medical staff and so forth, putting all their careers online. I'll say this, for that 15-year-old girl out there who might have been raped by someone who is going through all kind of trauma, I, as a taxpayer, I'm talking about paying here in the county of El Paso, and as a federal IRS taxpayer, I'd be more than happy to contribute to a fund to give these women somewhere to go to bring that child to full birth. They keep saying, don't get an abortion. Okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? If you want them to keep the child for 9 months, have somewhere for this young lady or whatever to go. I'm talking about either taking the baby in your arms, have them knock on your door and take your baby in your arms and take the baby, or give them some type of financial help, such as somewhere to live, medical benefits, and et cetera. I'm trying to say this. Quit talking about what they shouldn't do and not come up with an answer. And I would be more than happy to contribute to something like that. What's your thoughts about that, or what does your other callers might think about that?
Well, I mean, certainly the question is out there, and I'm sure we'll have more commenting on this, but kind of the back end of what happens then. Honestly, an interesting perspective that has come out, article from the Texas Tribune, quoting Representative Steve Toth of the Woodlands, saying that he is in support of having more, social safety net for women and foster care and adoption service. They're quoting him as saying, it only makes sense the dog caught the car now when it comes to this issue that has been very much statewide, obviously, but larger national push as well when it comes to pretty much the entire conservative movement. So that idea, I think, we'll see. There's a lot. I mean, we were talking about the legislative session coming up here from the city side of things a little bit in the first hour, but of course some thoughts are happening more across the state when it comes to what legislation can and should be pushed through. So I think that will be a push, whether your specific proposal gets traction or not. I mean, a whole lot of, okay, what do you do now? What is the recourse? Because I'll say personally, I take kind of a dim view of some of the reasoning that happens of just don't do it if you can't afford it kind of thing here, because it's punitive in my mind. So the idea of actually dealing with it proactively, I find myself very much more in favor of. So the idea of there being essentially caretaking of those, while pregnant kind of situation is an interesting one. Doubt Texas will go that far, but they have made some assertions that they are going to focus more on fostering and adoption services in this upcoming one I will be watching very closely to see if they follow through with that set of promises.
One more thing before we hang up. I saw, you might have seen it too here a few months ago, a lady was seen throwing a baby into a dumpster. And you see these stories, and I heard on the news last night about a woman say she took Drano to terminate a pregnancy. I look at all these kind of things. You're looking at the woman's well-being, her life, the baby, and everything else. If you convince them to go full term and let them know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, I bet you the word abortion would be out of the conversation. That's my thoughts.
Fair enough here. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. I mean, you got to deal with it, because it's one thing to say, okay, I'll just be perfectly honest. Most of the people I talk with have never been like, yes, there should be lots of abortions. Again, you can find any opinion on the internet, so don't post me the most obscure Twitter feed that you can find here, but reasonable. People I consider reasonable, even if they find themselves on the pro-choice side of things, are still kind of the assertion that it shouldn't be happening that often. there should be circumstances in which it can, but not necessarily that it should be a first choice by any means. It should be a hard choice, is most of the conversation I have with people across the political spectrum here. And that's why I think a lot of the conversation ends up coming down to the, okay, then what are the exceptions if you're going to have this more absolute position with it? So the idea of then having these kind of policies in place are interesting, instructive in the debate on them. And we'll see what specifically the Texas state legislature comes out with. Again, just put in perspective again one more time, this decision is not fully in effect yet, but of course, the conversation is going to keep going on. That decision was anticipated maybe later this month, probably closer to June, maybe even as late as July. We'll see if it gets a little bit further fast-tracked. Now, though, to my understanding of the entire deliberative process within the Supreme Court, may have been thrown just a little bit into upheaval. So stay tuned on that actual timeline here. RJ saying that there is a Christian group helping with the pregnancy and adoption, just opened in the last couple of years. And Catherine Carter saying adoption, not abortion here. Just to go, okay, totally off the wall if you want to go with it. There has been some research and development into the idea of artificial wombs. Now, I've only seen it really tested on not exactly like full-term pregnancy, like from start to finish, but I've seen it tested on lambs. We're kind of in the Dolly the sheep kind of range here. Now, that brings up a whole set of other implications, so do not mistake me as me saying, here's a solution, guys, neatly packaged up for you. We don't have to worry about this anymore, because it's super not. But there's possibilities, and technology can definitely have public policy implications as we get further along to them here. Yeah, so there's a lot more to come out with it. Jeez. The conversation is always over on the Facebook page, is where this is the Thunderdome of comments, so if you want to wade in over there. Let's take one more quick call before we hit this next break. We do have Nate on the east side here with us right now. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Andrew. And again, God bless you for the show. Good afternoon, El Paso. I just wanted to say this real briefly, just a perspective on something that I'm going to share. I'll be about a minute, but I want to share something personal. But first, I'm going to read this quick scripture. This is Psalms 139, 13 and 14. It says, "For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and works are wonderful. I know that full well." Having said that, with the remainers, I'd like to say I'm a very unique person in some way. This may tie into what people may think. I can't think for everybody. I'm just telling you what I am and what I've experienced. I was born, when my mother was pregnant with me, my brother, who was about a year or so older than I am, was burned on the right side of his face by an accident, a wood heater he fell up against trying to stand up. And it burned the right side of his face. It frightened my mother so bad when she seen him. My sisters were with her. It's a wood heater type thing. When I was born, I have the exact same mark on my face. I'm now 67 years old. And I told to share this with just a few times to people. And just the older I become, the more amazed I am with that, because I've never met another person who have that direct correlation to call it is the same mark on the right side of my face. So we met before, you may not remember. But anyway, sometime we'll meet, I'll show that to you. And just a perspective. I know I'm not there to insult or injure anyone about it. I just want people like that to know that there are things, regardless of how you package it up, be it physically, mentally, or spiritually, or all three combined, whatever that you want to believe. But there is something there. And I've traveled the world. I've never met anyone that has that direct correlation to cause and effect, before a child was born. And certainly I don't consider myself no fame. I don't ask not any of those things, but there is something to that. So, but thank God for you. And I appreciate everybody out there in Radio Land. We just appreciate having that moment or so to share this. Okay. Thank you, Andrew.
Oh, sure thing. No, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. You have a good one there. All right, that's going to take us through our next break here right now. Coming out of the break, we'll talk more about this and other issues and keep getting to those phone lines and the phone calls there. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of conversations, a lot of interesting comments coming in. We'll get to all of that and a whole lot more after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. I have already got my next appointment planned for Gentleman's Republic because, A, got to keep it looking good, got to keep it looking clean. And you also want to make sure that, for my purposes, you get the time that you want to. Of course, we got the show, so I can't exactly go in afternoons here. So I get my appointment with them, get right in there, get my drink, my beverage of choice, and the relaxing situation to get myself looking good, well-groomed, and ready for the show on the next day here. And you want to make sure you have your next appointment with them already as well, because having the perfect time for you is just part of the experience, but they do fill up. So you want to give them a call right now at 915-532-3000. That's again, 915-532-3000, or visit them online at gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTS Republic.com to have one of the best experiences of personal grooming and just, well, really some of the best experiences in terms of atmosphere in El Paso. If you haven't been there, you need to go by. It's in this beautiful old Trost building, not too far down the street on Mesa from us, a little bit closer to downtown, not too far from the intersection of Schuster and Mesa. And because they combine the services and the arts of barbering with, well, some of the services of your favorite spa or salon, as well as the atmosphere of your favorite watering hole. Again, I get there, get my favorite drink going on, and then just get to relax and truly get treated like a king for a day. And if you want to get that for your dad, I know we just had Mother's Day, so of course, happy Mother's Day to all those out there belatedly, but we got Father's Day coming up as well. So if you're looking for that next gift, and that great gift, doesn't your dad deserve to get treated like a king for a day? So find out about everything they got going on and make your own appointment, gentsrepublic.com. That's GENTS Republic.com.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Update. A man walking in central El Paso that died as a result of being struck by a vehicle Sunday has been identified. 38-year-old Christopher Corey Mozingo died at the scene at 1100 Rio Grande Avenue. El Paso City Council has approved the appropriation of $154 million from the American Rescue Plan Acting Fund. The city is shifting its focus from the relief approach to the recovery focus. With the approval, the council voted to fund several projects and services, including $6.6 million for police body cams, $7 million for expansion of city surveillance cameras, $6 million to support homelessness. Elizabeth Triggs, the Director of Economic and International Development for the city, says the areas mentioned are the ones in need of the most assistance. In regards to the $14 million for small businesses, Triggs explains the money will not allow for businesses to recover, but withstand future shocks such as a pandemic. I'm Erica Castillo with this KFOX 14 News Updates.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Watch for a crash on the I-10 eastbound at Copia. It's an injury accident slowing traffic. Gateway Boulevard southbound at Montana, heavy congestion there. Pebble Hills Boulevard eastbound at Lee Trevino going northbound, an injury accident. You could take Edgemere or Yarborough as your alternates. And Sunland Park Drive east of Mesa Hills, an accident reported there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our dusty, windy weekend that we had continues into a new work week. We'll continue to deal with these strong winds as we get through about Thursday, though. We'll start to see some changes taking place. And that means we're in for lighter winds for the second half of the week, along with even warmer temperatures. In fact, we could be looking at our warmest day yet so far this week.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Boost your IQ by listening to Red Pilled America, the best storytelling podcast in the country. This week, we tell the story of one of the most important culture wars in modern history, Gamergate. Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? Want to know what a healthcare professional would say? I'm Dr. Gerald Harmon. I'm the president of the American Medical Association. So we want you to know it's important for all children 5 and older to get a COVID vaccine because we know millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces is now hiring in-home caregivers. If you're kind and compassionate, then Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces may have a fun and flexible new career for you. Call 575-521-4400 today. Comfort Keepers of Las Cruces, elevating the human spirit.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic, but if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Staples offers tech solutions and accessories for learners, small business, and remote workers, too. Right now, Apple AirPods Pro are only $199. You save $50. Offer ends 5/14 while supplies last. Limit 2. Explore the latest tech solutions at Staples, the working and learning store. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show. Leave on your comments and such. Got those phone lines open right now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. A lot of stuff we'll be getting to here and further on that. A couple calls on the line. A lot of comments coming in. Calvin Williams letting us know with some Facebook difficulties. Actually, yeah, if the way it works, if you're on the live stream, if you end up jumping in, you won't see the previous comments. You only see the ones from the point when you tune in. But they'll all be up whenever the video is done. And well, it takes a few minutes to process once we're done with the show right after 6 o'clock. So you'll still be able to see everything when you go back to the replay. So don't worry about that, even if it's a little bit complicated at the time. You're also asking me what's my favorite drink. Whenever I go to Gentleman's Republic, keep it pretty simple for myself here. Go with bourbon on the rocks because it's, well, there for the experience, and it's just a good way to relax, and that's why I do it, among other reasons, after the show here. A lot more comments coming in here as well. Calvin Williams, RJ, Flaco Jimenez, Catherine Codry, Barbara Carrasco, and more. Interesting one coming in over from the Twitch stream here. Username Relaxson asking, are we a theocracy now? Didn't know Jesus was in the conversation in politics. Okay, let me put it to you this way. Yes, if an elected official is saying that we are going to govern the United States by the strict interpretation of any religious book, going to have issues with that. Because, again, the very concept, you might think, well, my religion, the one I subscribe to, is clearly correct and right, but you're still opening that door to then for being, well, I want my religious interpretation being in place here. It's just literally civil wars have been fought throughout history. The English Civil War, not even as a cross-religious one, but it was technically Christian against Christian in that, but the interpretation of such specific things. So, yes, if we're talking about an elected official saying that this is my justification for this law and no others, that I'd have an issue with. But if you want to talk about personal motivations to be involved in it and what you think should or should not be done within our country, I'm not going to say that anyone's motivations are necessarily wrong for how they're coming about it, as long as we can come to an understanding and agreement that making someone else follow your religion exactly is not a great thing. But if you're using essentially that ethics and that practice to inform your public policy decisions, I don't exactly see a huge issue with that. And frankly, I think that's why we see a lot of people not being involved in it, thinking that, I don't have any place in politics because I have my own motivations that don't fit this maybe narrow idea of how laws should be decided here. So again, yes, if we have, say, a president saying that, according to any passage of any religious book, I don't really care which one, that we are therefore going to do this, as opposed to saying, these are my personal beliefs, and here's how I see that is impacting on public policy, and here are the definable reasons we should do this outside of religious justification. I know that may sound a little bit convoluted and a little bit of a fine line to cover here, but literally, I don't see a problem with that. It's only if you're then saying, and therefore everyone must subscribe to X religion, that's the issue I have here. So no, we're not a theocracy, and I definitely believe in the First Amendment and the laws respecting an establishment of religion. But to say that you can't bring that with you and the ethics that inform you into public life and into elected life, that's just a non-starter for me as well. So more talk about that as well here. Vlad Jimenez letting us know his favorite drink, Jack Daniels on the rocks with a splash of Coke. Won't say I don't like that kind of a thing here, but Your opinion may vary. They got a lot of selection over there. But let's get back to those phone lines right now. Again, the number to call 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We have Tony on the west side here with us right now. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, as you know, I kind of gave up calling because I saw a pattern of a lot of talking and no action, and I really am disappointed, and I'm not only planning to call back anyway. But today I had to call because if I don't speak up about this abortion issue, I'll stand before God guiltier than I already am. You see, here's the mystery and the part that I don't understand that people should take into account very, very seriously. 80% of El Paso or so claim to be Christian or Catholic, right? So we go to church on Sunday and we call the Bible the Word of God, and we pray, we take the Holy Ghost, and we ask for our sins for forgiveness and so forth. But then the rest of the times, the majority of the city seems to be in favor of contributing tax money to the killing of the unborn. Now, these people, these Democrats specifically, because they're the ones that are really pushing this, they don't get it. They're either inconsistent mentally or liars, or I don't know what's wrong with them, because if you go to church or you believe in God and then you're in favor of contributing tax, never mind it's her body. I'm talking about you're contributing your tax money. You have blood on your hands because you're voting to put some of your effort and your money to help the woman kill the child. Now, if the woman wants to kill the child by herself, that's between her and God. But you're using our money and you're making policies where you will use our health system to help her do the murder. That's where I have trouble with it. It's not just her body. It's our funds helping her kill. Now, so let me just conclude with this. So if you Democrats and you Escobar, especially Escobar and the rest of the city council who are so ignorant, and you that go to church on Sunday, you will know now when you go up to take the Holy Ghost and when you're sitting in church and you're claiming that the Bible is the Word of God, you'll know that you have blood on your hands. And I hope that God doesn't choke you when you take that Holy Ghost, that Eucharist, because you are blaspheming the Word of God. He is the creator of life. He created that baby, and for you to help chop it up into 7 pieces, 2 pieces for the arm, 2 pieces for the leg, the torso in half, the head cut off, or the vacuum cleaner sucking it out before it's 3 months. If you can stomach that and still go to church, there's something very, very wrong with you, and you need to examine yourself, because that's the issue, and you're not willing to face it, and you need to face it. If not, Almighty God's going to judge you a lot harsher than you think my words are. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there. Kind of on the previous point we were just talking about here about using your own personal ethics and religious beliefs to inform your decisions for office here. I will say that at the very least, well, as many questions come up with this, again, draft majority decision that has come out from the Supreme Court and what that could actually mean. I mean, currently in place is the Hyde Amendment. That is the one that put into place in, I'm losing the actual date here, but that would prevents public funds to be spent on, well, most of those categories you just talked about, except for one other ones that came up here previously. Who was it here? I'm missing the comment, not having it in front of me, but saying that except for some very specific and limited exceptions here, it does prevent it from except those categories, essentially here. So crystal ball is not in place. It's cloudy as ever, but I don't think that we don't want to talk about the local issue here, what city council is proposing here. I'd be very, very surprised if it ends up going that far ever, particularly not immediately. I think that the idea of the creation of this commission will be a lightning rod enough for discussion here, and we'll see what that actually takes place. We'll, of course, keep up on this issue and see what comes out of it. But if there's going to be a local part of it, well, let's just say that's something we talked a little bit before as well about what state legislators are looking at potential for this next legislative session. Some of the ones that are also being looked at would be potentially extending, well, not exactly the SB 8, Senate Bill 8, the one that creates that interesting category of lawsuits, personal lawsuit from individual to individual involving abetting abortion services that could potentially be extended then to organizations that establish these funds, sort of thing. So maybe a fund, but we'll see what Texas does, even if I have some serious other issues with SB 8, particularly that mechanism that is now being looked at by other states for their own other purposes, including gun control, essentially that, well, we don't enforce it, the public enforces it. That whole mechanism is very disturbing to me for those variety of reasons, but we can get further into that here on other shows here. I think we have time to squeeze in one more quick call here. Power Carrasco, there was the comment there you brought up here. Well, legal exemptions based on specific circumstances. There again, comments over on the social media, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, if you really want to get into it here. But let's get one more quick call. We do have Mary on the west side here with us right now. Mary, thanks for joining us.
Yes, Andrew. Hi, thank you for taking my call. Basically, of course, I want to call and give my opinion on this, the issue on the abortion. And the way I see it is that it's about accountability. People want to say, oh, my body, and you can't force me, my body. Well, you know what? I think if you're having sex, if you know you're having sex, actively having sex, or you're out there partying with your friends and you know that you can go home with somebody, then get yourself on birth control. There's many, many methods now of birth control. It's not just about the pill. There's many methods. So get yourself, be responsible for your actions and get yourself on birth control. You know that that's the kind of life that you're leading. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying that's wrong. Everybody has their life. But what I am saying is, if that's the kind of life that you're going to lead, then take accountability for it. And then the other thing, as far as the baby, the fetus, they're saying 5 weeks. Now they're saying follow the science. The Democrats always say follow the science if it promotes. I'm sorry about my little dog. The Democrats always say promote the science or follow the science when it promotes their agenda, but when it does, otherwise, they want to disregard it. The science is saying the baby, there's a heartbeat at 5 weeks now. We didn't know that back in the 70s, but we know it now. There's a heartbeat at 5 weeks. That means that there's a person there. And the baby feels pain at 12 weeks. That's why I'm not saying totally outlaw abortion, because there is a need. As long as there's rape, as long as there's incest, there is a need. I'm not going to say there isn't. But we have to have accountability. We have to be responsible. And we have to keep in mind, 12 weeks, the baby feels pain. So you have up to, say, 10 weeks to make a decision if you want to keep that baby or not. Make the decision and go and get it taken care of. Don't wait until, now they want to do late-term abortion. The reason they want late-term abortion, Andrew, is because they're harvesting the baby's organs. That's why they want the late-term abortion. They want the eyes, they want the kidneys, they want the brain, whatever tissue they can get from that baby. That's why these Democrats want late-term abortion. They're selling these fetuses across the world, China, everywhere, whoever will pay for it. And that's horrendous. That's, and as far as Baul with his comments about President Trump and wanting to blow up the drug labs in Mexico, go for it. I wish he would have blown them up. Look at all the people that we have dying from drug overdoses, fentanyl and everything. He doesn't care about them. You tell a parent that lost their child, their teenage child, or their 8-year-old child, or whoever came across some drugs. You tell them if they want those drug labs blown up. I bet you they do. So, they care about everybody. They care about everybody as long as it promotes their agenda. But, now he cares about the drug labs. Oh, my God. He's like the biggest hypocrite. And I call him Baul because he's Baul full of crap. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you for the point in the call there and the slight other interjections we had going on there. So we got to take that last break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll deal with those and a whole lot more of the issues till we got coming up for you here on the program. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Copia. Watch for an injury accident with police on the scene. I-10 eastbound between Chelsea Street and Geronimo. You've got 5-minute delays. Accident reported on Loop 375 northbound at Bob Hope Drive. And another crash reported Gateway Boulevard northbound at Dyer. Police still on the scene working that accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Ben Ferguson Podcast.
Coming up on the Ben Ferguson Podcast all week, the repairman who revealed the Hunter Biden laptop story is now suing Adam Schiff, CNN, Politico, and others. And will he win? We're going to tell his story. Download the Ben Ferguson Podcast now.
The FBI calls home title theft one of the fastest growing cybercrimes in America. Listen to the alarming words of an actual home title thief.
I don't need to know your date of birth and social security number. All I have to do is go to public records, create a document, and file that document. And I can take the deed from in your name and transfer it, and then I can borrow against the house or sell the house. You may have no clue until you find out that your house has been sold or till several loans or several banks are foreclosing on you.
For pennies a day, Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier of protection around your home's title with 24/7 monitoring. The instant they detect any tampering, you'll get an alert. And that's bad news for home title thieves.
So the problem with a company like Home Title Lock is that they can get me in the middle of the crime, and that's your worst fear.
Are you already a victim? Find out today with your free title scan and complete title report. $100 value, free with sign up. Just go to mytitlelock.com. That's mytitlelock.com.
This is Matt Crowder live at the gas station on 41st Street, reporting on those skyrocketing gas prices. Excuse me, miss, are you buying less gas now because of the high prices?
Oh, I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute, are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
Well, does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow. Well, there you have it. Stop paying full price for gas. Download the free Upside app and get real cash back every time you buy gas. This is Matt Crowder Radio News Network. Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code DRAG for a $5 bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or any gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code DRAG for a $5 bonus on your first tank. That's code DRAG.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having tuned in for us here for the show here today on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. A couple of things I want to tell you about what we got coming up for you later this week. We'll be delving further into those upcoming elections. Now that we're through the one we just got through, that Texas constitutional amendment one, the uniform and special election, we got the primary runoff on deck. So let's get rid of the confusion, focus on what's coming up here. Of course, we had those previous interviews with Sergio Coronado and Blanca Trout, the Democrat and Republican candidates for the nomination for Precinct 4 County Commissioner's Court, respectively. You can always catch those over on our social media. Facebook would be one of the better ones, just because it's where we have most of our stuff up here if you want to go back and see those interviews from last Thursday. But that'll be coming up this week, talking with David Adams, also Republican candidate here. And, of course, we got a lot more local seats on that primary runoff. So keep it straight. Those dates on the schedule, May 16th, start of early voting there, and then Election Day, May 24th. So that's what we'll be focusing on, because that, of course, sets up November. So that'll about do us here for today. I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment. We've had a lot of them here today, a lot of impassioned points here, and we're here for the discussion, as we will be every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. here. So Ion Graham, Catherine Codry, Matt Olson, Calvin Williams, Baba Carrasco, Flaco Jimenez, RJ, and more. All of those comments, I mean, they help develop because, okay, let's just look at, and also we even had Relaxed Sun over on the Twitch stream responding back. Even if you don't have an opinion on these, hearing what other people have to say can be instructive. And given the lack of voting we have across the board here in our region, there's clearly a lot of people that may not have strong feelings, strong emotions, strong conceptions, even of the things we're talking about here. So regardless of your position, I am here for the discussion, and we'll keep doing that every day as we do during the week here. So again, thanks to everyone who tune in, call, and comment. It's really what makes this work the way it does. Otherwise, I'll just be talking into a room by myself, and I don't think anyone really needs that. So we'll be back with more of this tomorrow here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening all. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at Copia, watch for an injury accident with police on the scene. I-10 eastbound between Chelsea Street and Geronimo, you've got 5-minute delays. Accident reported on Loop 375 northbound at Bob Hope Drive. And another crash reported Gateway Boulevard northbound at Dyer. Police still on the scene working that accident. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
My mom turned 65 last year, and let me tell you, helping her get her Medicare benefits squared away was not easy. She had so many choices for coverage, and most agents she spoke with just left her feeling overwhelmed and confused. She tried to do some research on her own, but Mom isn't the most tech-savvy person out there, so it was hard for her to make sense of the provider websites and paperwork. When she asked me for help, I found Chapter, and they made both of our lives so much easier. They compare thousands of Medicare plans and help seniors choose the best plan for their needs. Mom spoke to one of their advisors, and she walked her through every step of the process. Now she's on a great plan, and we both can relax. And the best part? Chapter was 100% free.
If you or your loved one wants to maximize their Medicare benefits, give Chapter a call today. 800-449-8577. Call today. 800-449-8577. That's 800-449-8577. Chapter Medicare.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
It's important to know what's going on, especially around the world.
News Radio 690 KTSM.